The Book of Soiga is the book that kills. The entirety of the book is made up of other books, including ancient texts like the Liber Alderaya and the Liber Radiorum. Together, they compose a powerful book of magic. But that's not all, as the Book of Soiga is steeped in mysticism and mystery. The great scholar and advisor to the first Queen Elizabeth, a man named John Dee, had this book in his possession. He spent years trying to decode a mysterious puzzle in the book of over 40,000 randomly distributed letters. He consulted spiritualists and even recruited a medium to put him in touch with the Archangel Uriel to help solve the intricacies of the book. But he never figured it out, and neither has anyone else. As for the magic inside the book, it's mostly incantations and instructions, details on the names and genealogies of angels and demons, method of astrology and spells, but it's the undeciphered code in the book that remains a true mystery. Mysterious ancient spells were just recently found by archaeologists in Serbia. These magical spells were found inscribed on very small rolls of gold and silver, found buried next to skeletons from 2,000 years ago. These skeletons were found right next to a massive coal-fired power station in northeastern Serbia, in the city of Koselac. The modern power station happens to be sitting on the remains of an ancient Roman city called Viminacium. It was during an archaeological dig here that researchers came across skeletons, which had been buried with mysterious amulets made of solid lead. The researchers opened the lead amulets, and inside they found the delicate magical scrolls. On the scrolls are the names of several demons that were taken to the grave to invoke divine powers. Dankovic described it as binding magic. This spell would have been bound to the dead body so that the deceased could locate a demon in the afterlife and ask it to complete the curse or wish written on the scroll to help them finally rest. An ancient Egyptian handbook that was filled to the brim with spells and invocations. The book is titled The Handbook of Ritual Power. The book instructs its readers on how to cast spells of love, how to banish evil spirits, and how to treat infections. The book is a kind of codex, a series of pages of parchment all bound into one great tome. It was written in ancient Coptic about 1,300 years ago, and most likely belonged to a ritual practitioner. The book begins with some light invocations, leads to drawings of magical symbols, and then goes on to words of power. At the end, there are instructions on how to cast the spells. The Egyptian Handbook of Ritual Power says that if you wish to subjugate someone in business, just do the following. First, say the magic formula over a pair of nails. Next, casually go by their home and drive the nails into the doorposts, one on the right side and one on the left. And there, that person will now be totally within your control. Or at least they should be. The Arbatel de Magia Veterum was written at some point between 1536 and 1583. It was written somewhere in Switzerland, but the author is completely unknown. All we know for sure is that the book was published by Pietro Perna and edited by Theodor Zwinger. The Arbatel, as it's commonly known, focuses mainly on humanity, celestial beings, and the positive relationship between them. It's one of the most wholesome and uplifting books of magic written in the Middle Ages. The Arbatel was something much more positive. The book suggested ways for spiritual leaders to be more active in their communities, and how magicians should favor kindness and charity over the pursuit of power. Instead of performing diabolical rituals in obscurity, those with magical knowledge should share that knowledge with like-minded individuals. Sure, the book does quote the Bible quite a lot, but it also talks about mythical beings known as elementals, which are pivotal in the works of alchemists. It goes on to discuss gnomes and the strange role they play in modern magic. And finally, it describes ways that a common man could get more in touch with the heavenly deities that live out in the universe. The Black Book, if the legends are to be believed, holds all the most evil magical practices of the world in its pages. In Russia, sorcerers used to be known as they who know the Black Book. It was believed that sorcerers learned the art of black magic from devils and demons whom they remained in constant contact with throughout their entire lives. When the sorcerer was teamed up with a devil, that devil would get to feed on the sorcerer's life and soul in exchange for the Black Book. The book had all the spells and enchantments the sorcerer would need to wreak havoc on a particular community and live a life of malevolence. Then, when the sorcerer died, the book would be passed on to the next magic man. And if the sorcerer was unable to pass the book on before his death, he'd become a revenant, an evil spirit of the night. The black book could be hiding somewhere, waiting to be used again. The Ars Notoria, the notary art of Solomon, is a medieval grimoire written in Latin sometime around the 13th century. Its original copies were also filled with mystical drawings called notae. The interior of the book goes into 4 main categories. It promises to reveal the Kabbalistic keys for magical operations, liberal sciences, divine revelation, and the art of memory. It also has later chapters dealing with the natural necessities which should be learned by all persons. The main thing the book does, though, is give the reader a series of prayers and orations which can supposedly invoke the help of angels. 700 years ago, this would have been something that people could have done at home without expecting any major results. That way, they would never truly know if the invocations worked or not. And finally, there was the mental part of the book. It gave instructions on how to increase memory and on how to focus one's mind to better reach their goals. And this is where the secret truth of almost every medieval spellbook lies. People could read them, learn how to better themselves, learn how to get more in touch with the spirits, and invoke the names of the angels to assist them on their journey. De Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonum is one of the most famous books of evil that has ever been written. It also goes under the name The False Hierarchy of Demons. The book is complete with the names of approximately 69 demons. The author was Johann Weyer, a Dutch doctor and practitioner of the occult who was born in the Netherlands over 500 years ago in 1515. He became a student of the famous magician Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa and delved deep into the occult and magic. And when he was 62 years old, he finally published the greatest book of demonic magic the world has ever seen. It was never really Johann's idea to create a magical book glorifying demons. Instead, he had been trying to poke fun at the whole idea of the demonic hierarchies of hell. He admitted that demons were real and that they definitely could have power over people, but they weren't worshipped by witches. Instead, magicians used demons for their own evils, to seduce people and steal their money. He even included instructions on how to summon them and then bend their evil spirits to one's will. The Testament of Solomon was written long ago, over 200 years after the life of Christ. The book is tied directly to astrology and is said to contain all the wisdom of the dead king. The Testament of Solomon is supposed to be a compilation of all of his supernatural encounters, and it was written in the style of a confessional. For example, the book talks about how King Solomon enslaved demons and used their powerful magic against them. One day, he came upon a young boy who was having his vitality sucked out of his right thumb by a demon. Solomon prayed for a way to help the boy, and the archangel Michael came down and bestowed upon him a magical ring. The ring became known as the Seal of Solomon, and the great king used it from that day forward to enslave the demons. He then used their magic to help build temples and other great buildings in Jerusalem. The Book of Veles is either a book of magic or a literary forgery. The book claims to be a text written in ancient Slavic languages, a mixture of religion and history scrawled on wooden planks. The book contains religious passages and explanations on historical events. The book was supposedly found in 1919, lost again until 1941, and then it started to become mainstream. The issue is in the Slavic, as the authors used a weird assortment of modern Slavic and improper grammar, rather than ancient Slavic. This almost immediately disproves the book as a fake. Nonetheless, it is still used as a sacred text by Slavic neo-pagans to this very day. It describes the Slavic ancestors as being enslaved by the horrible King Nabsur, and later on fighting against the Goths and Huns. The Book of Veles is less of a magical index and more of an obscure history of Slavic people, one used by the neo-pagans as part of their historical belief system. The Greek magical papyri is a series of documents from ancient Egypt that were written during the reign of the Roman Empire. These were all written at various times, then gathered into a single collection and published quite recently. One volume was published in 1928 and the next in 1931. It was the German scholar Karl Preisendanz who collected all these various works and stitched them into one great book of magic. It was first translated into English in the 1980s. 2,000 years ago, the various spells had most definitely been used by Egyptian priests living under the iron thumb of the Roman Empire. They were written in Greek, a mixture of Demotic and Coptic, because that was the administrative language of Rome in its eastern provinces. In the ancient world, the Eastern Empire used Greek for all of their business. In ancient Egypt, these spells were seen as much more important than just prayers. The Egyptian priests needed to get these spells right, otherwise the deceased might not make it successfully into the afterlife to enjoy eternal paradise.